Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of CFE TV. Today we are going to discuss a match preview in regards to Fulham against Burnley, at bottom of the table clash, a must win for Fulham. And if Burnley get any points, then it's mathematically safe. I mean, it's more of a bigger game for Fulham than it is for us. But at the end of the day, we can't dumb this down. It's a must not lose game, and let's get right into it. Hello and welcome back. We have got a guest on the show. He is from Cottage Talk. We have, please tell me if I'm saying this correctly. Is it Emilio?
Perfect. Yep. Hi, Dan.
Brilliant. Hi. Hope you're well, mate.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, it's from the Cottage Talk podcast. Myself and Russ Goldman, who leads the podcast. We've been doing many shows, many podcasts for many years at the moment. So it's good to do a show with you guys tonight, reflecting on like you said, it's a must-win game for us. For you, it's as long as you don't lose, you're pretty much safe. But I think it's academic. As long as we've got to win 4 games out of 4 to give us a chance. It doesn't even guarantee us survival if we win the next 4 games. So it's nothing to lose. Go for it, Scott Parker, and give it your best shot. I
totally agree. I feel really bad for you guys this season because you're a solid club. I think there's a lot of London clubs in the Premier League, but to lose one, such as Fulham as well, who've like we said off camera, I've had a topsy-turvy season, like we say, under Scott Parker. Scott Parker's been accredited for the way his side play football, but it's just that that final 10 minutes where you seem to just sort of lose that energy. It starts to spiral. I mean, you could see from Scott Parker's reaction in the I think it was the game against Liverpool, where he just sort of put his head down, and I think for him he sort of resided, right, this might be it this season. But yeah, I mean, I understand you give us a little bit of an introduction, but sell your channel, sell yourself, give us an introduction to who you are, who Russ is, and what you do.
Yeah, please do. So for everyone, just follow us on @Cottage Talk. There's obviously a YouTube page, a Twitter, Facebook. All our shows are live, are streamed live as well on Facebook. And so please do listen to us and follow us. All our fans around the world. So yeah, thanks for having us on, Dan. But it's I've been a Fulham fan for over 40 years now. So I've been following the club, through thick and thin. There have been worse seasons than this one. Put it this way, we've been in 4th tier for many years. And the fact that we're going to get likely to get relegated actually doesn't bother me, to be honest. I think it's time to regroup, refocus, and rebuild. The problem is every time we go, we've been up twice in the playoffs in the last 3 seasons and pretty much gone straight back down. We need to go back to grassroots. Build an academy, which we've got a good, strong academy. Let those young players, give them a chance. Strengthen the team and get a team a bit like Wolves. I want to do what Wolves did a few seasons ago. They built to get promoted, but also built a squad there that was good enough to stay in the Premier League. And look, 3-4 years on, they're still comfortably in the Premier League. And we've got to work to those foundations if we want. Otherwise, we're a yo-yo club, a bit like Norwich City. 1 minute you're up, 1 minute you're down. That's not good for business. And fans are getting very.
I totally agree.
So we're there for a reason. I don't have any qualms about getting relegated because 5 wins isn't good enough. Whatever team you are, that's relegation form.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'll strip it back to the beginning. Your thoughts on Scott Parker, pretty much. Obviously, he's been top quality. He got you promoted and everything else, and he is still a young manager. He's sort of having that same. He's sort of in that same bracket and caliber as Eddie Howe was when he sort of took Bournemouth up. So I can understand, the plaudits that Scott Parker receives, but what are your thoughts on Scott Parker? And then there's a following question to that as well. Are you resided to losing him?
Yeah, good. Okay, interesting. So yeah, I remember doing a show with Russ Goldman soon after Scott Parker got the job a couple of years ago, and neither of us were inspired. But you have to see, well, actually, I know the style of football he likes to play. You've seen that in last season and this season in the Premier League. I wasn't his biggest fan, but, you have to respect the decision your club makes. And I think you've got to support the decisions that are made. And last year, without playing fancy football, I thought we underachieved. Even though it sounds crazy because we got promoted, I thought we were underwhelming at times. He was trying to play a certain style of football. We weren't winning games comfortably. We were losing a lot of games, but obviously we were either winning or losing last year. So we got promoted through the playoffs, but again, not his biggest fan, but he got promoted first time around. You can't complain about that. This season, the first few games, he had a poor squad. We didn't have limited investment from the owners. Those investments came maybe a little bit too late, and then obviously we're already half a dozen games into the season looking doom and gloom because we were conceding for fun at the time. But then things started to change around November time, December time. We started to get a stranglehold, play his brand of football. We were difficult to beat. We're getting some decent results, but again, it was only draws and not wins. And then we always said there's always the next game. There's always the next game, and games are starting to run out. And to be honest, it's despite all the good football he's playing and a lot of plaudits he's got from the neutrals, it's not been good enough. I thought there've been at times when there've been must-win games in the last half dozen. There was Wolves at home, Leeds at home, Villa away. It's these are games. Even the Arsenal game away a couple of weeks ago, 1-0 up, deep in injury time. Go clear the ball the other end. You made some strange substitution, which I questioned, and you were asking for trouble. And they scored the 96th minute. That's 2 points dropped. Wolves, you conceded in the 93rd minute, but you played not to lose that game, Scott Parker. When that's a game you must go out and win, and in fact you got 0 points out of it. So he's learning, like you said, he's learning the trade. If we get relegated, we are likely to get relegated. I've said we keep him. You can't keep firing managers. I look at what you guys did with Sean Dyche. You persevered with him when you got relegated. He took you straight back up. So there's a bit of hope. Maybe if Scott stays on the job, he can do something similar. But overall, are we going to lose him? I'm not sure he would. There's all these links to Tottenham Hotspur. Why would Tottenham Hotspur go for a young, unproved, a manager who hasn't proven himself this league? He's far too young to take on a job at that level. He has to prove himself in the Premier League to get a good Premier League job. So give him the job for next season. See what he can do. Invest in the squad because we're going to lose a lot of players. That's the thing. We're going to lose a lot of these loan players. Some of the old folks will probably move on. They've been there a couple of times getting us promoted. If they're not good enough in the Premier League now, then they need to move on. Let's rebuild a new squad. But I think use Scott Parker to do that. Even though I'm not his biggest fan, you can't keep firing managers. That's my view.
No, Steve's come in with a comment already. What can Parker learn from Dyche?
Resilience, determination. I think Scott Parker only has one style of football. I met him about 18 months ago. I was at Craven Cottage for an event one evening, and I talked about quite candidly at the time around his brand of football, style of football. He was telling me how he was trying to play the football like you see in the Premier League this year: passing, keeping possession. Don't rush things through. He'd rather keep possession and wait for that moment. And you've seen what we did last year and this year. He's looking to take that lead and protect that lead. And sometimes it hasn't worked out. But Sean Dyche sometimes got a bit of a plan B there. He tries to mix it up a little bit. Not always pretty. Now, obviously, I'm not sure from your perspective you like his brand of football, but I'd rather stay in the Premier League at all costs rather than trying to play a brand of football and it's not good enough and it gets you relegated. So I think what Parker could learn from Dyche is experience. I think that will come with time, resilience, and sometimes being a little bit more ugly. We're a bit too pretty at times and a bit too soft. And decision making. Sean Dyche's tactical decisions making is better than Scott Parker, but I think that comes with experience. But Steve, unfortunately, Parker is a few years younger than Sean. It will come with time. You've got to give these managers time to learn the trade, and at times he's fallen short, Scott Parker, in terms of tactical substitution, the timeliness of his substitutions, and his decision making. But that comes, we all have to learn our jobs, don't we? And I think Scott Parker's in the same mold, to be honest. So I wouldn't swap Scott Parker for Sean Dyche, but I'd rather, at the end of the day, but I think he's got a lot to learn from Sean Dyche because he's proven himself at this level and he knows how to grind out results. Scott Parker hasn't quite done that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, going back to Sean Dyche having a plan B, it's a sort of a catch-22 situation. We do play good football. We do play good, ugly football. But it's like you say, it gets results. You look at the likes of people like Big Sam, who's gone in at West Brom And to be fair, Slaven Bilic, off the back of the result against Man City, I don't know where that sacking came from.
I agree.
It was a bit out of the blue. But yeah, Big Sam, no matter what, in those clubs that are down there, seems to sort of get something, doesn't he? Sort of, and his brand of football isn't the best to watch.
Exactly.
But it works. And sometimes you can play this expansive, pretty boy football, but it doesn't get you the end result that you want, which is the 3 points. Exactly. So yeah, it is ugly to watch, but it's sort of become the Burnley way now.
Are you happy with that? What do you prefer? Would you prefer to play an expansive football like you've seen with Scott Parker and potentially get relegated, or is staying in the Premier League a minimum that you're asking as a supporter that you want?
I think you've got to look at it that 17th and above has got to be the key. Staying in the division has got to be key, but there has got to be a certain point now. This is I think this is going to be our 6th season or 5th season consecutively. So we sort of have to look a bit further than the end of our nose now. And, you know, I've said, you know, flirting around 12th, 13th is a brilliant season for us because we're still in and amongst it. We're in the middle of it. We used to be in the middle of the Championship. We were for years. So why not start establishing ourselves in the middle of the Prem and then eventually go on to bigger and better things? Big one, Will has put, this football has done more than keep us up. Yeah, it has. I mean, you have to look at the season. We finished 7th, got European football. You know, the stories that are up there with the likes of, you know, Leicester winning the league, Burnley punching above the weight, Sheffield United doing it as well. And now look at them, rock bottom of the Premier League. It's strange what happens in football. But yeah, regarding a plan B, I have to sort of reflect back on the Newcastle game where we kept pumping the ball into the box. The keeper kept coming out and collecting it. There was nothing in terms of, you know, a plan B. Sometimes the substitutions are too late. Sometimes the subs are non-existent. So there is things that grind your gears sort of thing with Sean Dyche at times. But as a manager, you know, I lobbed my hands up when he first came in. I was like, what's this appointment all about? Because this is a bloke that had about a month or two at Watford before the Pozzo family bought in and, you know, made him jump ship. But yeah, no, I agree. Again, Will, I totally agree. Not got the players for a plan B.
And again, your manager's done a great job with limited resources. You know, let's be honest.
Yeah. So I think that's what scares us, that we potentially could. How do I put it? It scares us that if we actually had a player with flair and a decent attacking movement, is he even a Sean Dyche player? It scares us about that because we had that sort of with Stephen Defoe, and he, you know, he had his injury worries, etc., etc. But the only sort of player we're seeing now with a bit of flair is Dwight McNeil, and it worries me that we're just going to go for big, strong lads and try and, you know, tussle it out, old school players. But the game's evolving, and we need to, like I say, we need to look further than the end of our nose. I mean, going on to your season,
you want a managerial change.
Well, yeah. You want adaptability, don't you? Sometimes as well. You want to be able to adapt to certain situations. I mean, we get beat and, you know, kicked to the curb by Man City every single season, 5 or 6-0. So it's, you know, you keep thinking, oh, is this the season? I think this season we kept it lower than 5, so we're happy. But no, like we say, we'll go back to your season. Obviously, your thoughts are, which you've already said, that, you know, you think that's it now for this season. It's back to the Championship for you lot, unfortunately. Obviously, every game is to win now. And it's like you said, you've won 5 all season, was it?
Yeah.
And you've got to win another 4, which...
And going to Old Trafford, one of those 4 is Old Trafford away. And again, anything's possible. We've done it before, you know. But I've been saying it since the turn of the year. There's always, I think I was saying, we needed to win 6 games the second half of the season. You know, every single week we kept saying, a good draw, but not a win. So we still need 6 wins. Another draw, still needs 6 wins. It was a constant theme. I mean, Steve will know this. You know, the shows I do each week, it's we're starting to run out of games week in, week out, less games. And then it comes to a point now we've got no choice but win 4 out of 4. We've needed to win 6 out of 15 to 18 games, and now we've got to win 4 out of 4. Anything's possible. Football's a funny game, like you mentioned, Dan, but you never know. We beat you tomorrow, play with a bit of confidence, score a few goals. You never know. It's a bit of confidence. Our confidence is down. We're losing morale, confidence, belief. Scott Parker will try to inject that belief in the team, but every post-match is the same story. We deserved more. We didn't kill the game off. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. But ultimately, he's got to take some responsibility as well. The players aren't as good as we think they are at times. They're not clinical enough. Our goal record is quite clear. Second worst in the division. That's why we're third from bottom. The stats don't lie. If you look at all the stats, they don't lie.
No, what's been your thoughts then on the transfer process this season? The players you brought in, who do you think's actually shone for you this season?
Mixed, to be honest. It was obviously because we got promoted late in the day that we lost a good couple of weeks or so. By the time we couldn't commit to buying any players in the transfer window because you didn't know if you're going to get promoted or not. So that held us back a bit. Clearly, we went in the first few games of the season with the squad that took us up last year. We knew that 2 years ago they weren't good enough, and clearly we were getting hammered. Lost 3-0 to Arsenal, 3-0 to Villa. We were just not scoring goals and looked like conceding, every minute. So then the owner started making some shrewd signings. We got a lot of loan players. Again, mistakes from 2 seasons ago when he spent over £100 million and we still got relegated. We're now paying the price for that poor decision making. There's financial fair play in place, which means we're restricted on how many signings we could make. So he had to go down the loan market route. And admittedly, there's some good players there. But Loftus-Cheek, to be honest, I was excited when we got him. What's he done for us? 1 goal and 1 assist, I think it is, in 25, 30 games. That's not good enough. A player's on 60 to 100 grand a week from Chelsea, and the former England international. I expected more from him. He's done very little. He's been decent in some games, but not really influenced the game enough. When he was at Crystal Palace, he was scoring a lot of goals from midfield, a lot of assists, and looked strong, physical, and a threat. He's done nothing for us this year. And these are the sort of players. Anderson in defence has been outstanding. The goalkeeper Areola has been outstanding. But they're going to go to bigger clubs. They're not going to want to stay with us in the Championship. They're going to move on. And maybe you could argue there's an issue here that if you've got only lone players, how committed are they to the team? How hard are they fighting? Other than Anderson, who I thought has been fighting tooth and nail for the club. He's became the captain early part of the season, has been outstanding. The other lone players have been a bit mixed. Some have been good, some have been not so good. But where does your heart lie if you're not a permanent player for that club? You're being paid to do a job.
Of course you are.
So I think there's a risk there, and I think we're finding that out now. Too many lone players. When the chips are down, maybe they haven't been fighting hard enough. And Scott Parker equally has got to take some responsibility for this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Will said again. Obviously, we're looking like we're going to lose Tarkowski this season. He's come out already and said that, he's only got a year left on his contract. We've offered him a new deal, but he doesn't want it to be in the club's favour. He wants it to be in his favour, so he can choose. So I think that obviously means that he may sign a contract, but it's a case of he doesn't want it to be where the club can extend it. If he wants to go, he wants the option to go, which is fair enough to him. He's been solid, but then so has anybody that's been at the side of Ben Mee. So not losing Ben Mee would be key for me. But I agree with Will. I'd love Anderson. I think he's been solid for you guys. Obviously, you wouldn't like him to go. So
been outstanding. Really, he's got back into the national team, but. He's too good for a championship. He's not a championship player. Another Premier League team will probably snap him up. And you
see those moves as well, though, don't you? Where players from the Championship sometimes they don't want to leave, but they'll get that loan move to the Prem. And if Fulham come back up again, he goes back, and it could potentially be one of them. But I don't know. Steve's also commented saying, Dan, will you keep Wood and Emilio? I keep forgetting it. Would Fulham have done better with him? I hope we do keep Chris Wood. I think he's such a mixed bag in our fan base. Fans love him, fans hate him. He's so Marmite. He's onside, he's offside. Sometimes we don't even have to wait for VAR. We have to wait if there's an offside call before there's a goal or anything else. So, I do think we'll keep hold of Chris Wood. He's a solid player for us. He's got that typical Burnley
Yeah, he
fire
does.
in his belly. But
I don't think he's a Fulham player. I don't think he's a Scott Parker type play. He doesn't suit. Admittedly, would he have scored more goals than our other strikers? Probably would. I think Chris Wood would have scored more, but he doesn't suit Scott Parker's style of football. Mitrovic, you've seen that clearly. He's hardly figured this season because he's not the type of player that Scott Parker wants in his team. But for me, when you're down in the doldrums, you need to score goals. You've got to put your best players in and find a way of working with them, whether you like them or not. And that's where Scott Parker's been stubborn. He's only sticking to one philosophy and doesn't change. Whether you need to win or whether you need to draw a game or not lose a game, he's got the same philosophy. There's been no, we talked about Plan B earlier. Scott Parker hasn't got a Plan B. Same philosophy, same attitude, and rarely have we gone it out, from the block and really put pressure on the teams for the first 10, 15 minutes. We did that against Man United at home. I remember back in February, we dominated the first 50 minutes, took a deserved lead. But as you expect, Man United slowly started getting into the game and deservedly won 2-1 at the end. But we don't do that enough. And when we had games to win, and games we were able to win, we weren't pushing hard enough. We weren't offensive enough. We were a bit too negative, too conservative. So for me, it's Chris Wood would have probably scored more goals than some of our other players, but he's not a Scott Parker type player, unfortunately.
No, do you think you guys have relied quite a lot on Mitrovic the past couple of years? Do you think it's always sort of fallen on Mitrovic to get your goals? Do you think Scott Parker has tried to sort of change that and try and get everybody involved in not just a goal scoring threat, but having more option for an assist, having more people having pot shots at goal, etc. I mean, for me, it has always seemed like it's been a case of without Mitrovic, Fulham doesn't work, sort of thing.
No,
and
exactly.
you saw that in the Championship and the season before. I mean, he had a good season in the Premiership. I was surprised that you managed to keep hold of him when you went down.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, do you think personally that Mitrovic has been one that it's sort of relied on, and do you think there is something there between, like you say, I know he's not. You said he's not a Scott Parker player, but do you think Scott Parker needs to sort of let go of that idea and think, change it up in these 4 games?
Yeah,
you've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, nothing to lose. And what I think a lot of fans are stunned, perplexed about is there's players who were not figuring in the Championship last year now playing more games in the Premier League. Ivan Cavallero, Bobby Decordova-Reid. Okay, he's our leading scorer, but that doesn't say much, to be honest. And Cavallero was poor in the Championship. Yeah, he's playing most games this season, and clearly he's out of his depth at this level. There was a reason why I remember I did a show with a Wolves supporter on the show when we got promoted, and I remember he was saying he was glad that they sold Ivan Cavallero because he's not a Premier League player, and clearly we've not seen that this season. He's been lacking and found out at this level. And a lot of these players, they're good enough for the Championship, but not good enough for the Premier League. And Scott Parker's just been stubborn. You've got to play your best striker, whether Mitrovic is on form or not, confident or not. You've got to play him. You've got to find a way to get him into the mix. Change it, play more 4-4-2, play more attacking threat, play more long ball, change it. But it's the same old, and that's the frustration for me. I think when we got neck and neck with Newcastle about 6 weeks ago with Brighton, we were right back in it. We've done the hard job recovering 10, 12-point deficit. And then suddenly the other teams, you guys, Brighton, Newcastle, all started finding a way of winning. Scott Parker didn't change his tactics, didn't change his approach, and we were starting to lose games. So you won when it counts. We started losing at the business end of the season, which is why we're cut adrift from the rest of the league. So Mitrovic will probably go. There's obviously some rivalry between the two of them. They obviously clearly don't get on. There's obviously a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. But again, what's our brand of football next year? What's our approach for investing in the club? That's my worry. Where are the owners going to? We've 2 failed attempts to stay in the Premier League. Is our director of football still going to be in the job? And that's what all the speculation is about. We need a more permanent director of football who has a more long-term vision of the club rather than just reacting to a promotion and a relegation, one season focus. It needs to be a 5-year plan here, like the previous owners. He had a long-term plan and got us to where he wanted to. Under these owners, although they've invested a lot of money, the director of football is just clearly hasn't got Fulham as his number one priority. It's quite clearly.
Do you see pretty much? Obviously, there's the new stand being built, isn't there? I mean, do you think that'll be completed by the start of next season, or is that probably midway?
Yeah, it's pretty much come up leaps and bounds the last few months, so it should be finished for next season. guess it seems weird. We're talking next season. We'll probably start early August, probably mid-August.
Yeah.
Got the European Championships to look forward to as well in June, July. But it's a new era. Whether Scott Parker's going to be there, he won't get sacked. I think whether fans want him sacked or not, the owners will not sack him. I'd be very surprised. Will he go to another club? I think he still has to show his pedigree at this level. He wants a top job. He needs to prove this will be the best chance. Get the club re-promoted and keep the team in the Premier League. A bit like Sean Dyche. Then you can attract, a bigger club. But he's not ready to go manage Tottenham Hotspur, all these other clubs that he's been linked with. He's not good enough yet.
Do you think he will stay then?
If he's not pushed, I think he will stay. Yeah, I don't think he will be pushed. Again, I'm not his biggest fan, but give him time, give him an opportunity to change things, and give him a strong championship squad. But I worry for next season. I worry that we're going to lose a lot of our experienced players, a lot of these loan players, and we have to start from grassroots again to some extent. Bring in some of our academy players who are doing particularly well this season, and try to build a new era, a new strategy. But for that, it may mean a couple of years in the championship rather than going straight back up. Norwich have done remarkably well this year. I didn't think Norwich would get straight back up. I thought they'd struggle. They've got 96, 97 points. And that's only because the rest of the championship, I think, are quite poor. And then Watford have obviously come straight back up. So it's doable, but I thought those two teams would struggle, but clearly they've obviously got straight back up first time around.
Yeah, there's a good chance that Bournemouth might do the same in the playoffs as well. So it's a tough one. I mean, going back to what we said about the transfers and the owners, once the stand's built, maybe there's another Michael Jackson statue in the offing.
We need a bit of luck, to be honest. I think I can see what Scott Parker's trying to do with his football. You can see that on the pitch. But I don't. Sometimes it can be quite turgid. It can be quite boring. You've got to be very patient. We all want to see goals, but clearly we haven't got enough goals this season. That style of football clearly isn't indicative of scoring goals. Last season was the same, grinding out 1-0 wins at home. Our hearts were like pumping during each of the games because we couldn't relax. We just kill the game off 2 or 3-0 and then move on. But it was always sticking to 1-goal lead and preserving that lead. And we've got caught out a few times this season trying to protect a 1-0 lead or not lose a game. And another 5 points in the bag, then things would have been a little bit more interesting the end of the season. But we're too far adrift at the moment. But anything's possible, right? Anything's possible.
It is. I mean, we've already played twice this season, haven't we? We've had the was it the FA Cup? No, it wasn't the FA.
Oh,
was it the FA Cup or the Carling Cup? I can't remember which one it was.
FA Cup. We were dismal. That's probably one of our worst performances this season. No passion, no fight. It was snowing in London that day. I remember it was It was snowy conditions, but no excuses. We were awful, absolutely diabolical. And then the game at Turf Moor, I thought we were disappointed not to come away with a win in that game. I think we took.
I agree.
We took a win that day. Was it Chris Wood who equalised for you? I can't remember.
Ashley Barnes.
Ashley Barnes. That's right, Ashley Barnes.
It was Oleana scored for you, I think.
Yeah, I thought we played well that game. Again, it's a point gain, but I thought on the balance of play, I thought we lost 2 points in that game, and it might.
I totally agree with you. And that would have been a massive shift in the mentality, especially going into this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that game for me was a shock because we wasn't exactly in a great run of form at the time ourselves. And that 3-0 coming from nowhere. We actually had the ball on the floor. We played some football. We sort of got in and around the box. And I thought in the cup game, we could have actually gone on to score more than 3.
Yeah, right. You're right.
It was, which was what shocked me when we came back to the turf for the Premier League game. And the 1-1, I was like, wow, why are we so poor? We already know how to set up. We already know how to do the job because there wasn't that much difference really. I think there was probably about 6 games between that and then us playing in the Premier League, something like that. So it was a case of, right, you already know how to set up. So it's there for the taking. To be quite honest with you, I was already sort of thinking, right, well, we've got this Fulham game in the bag. We've turned them over 3-0. Confidence is low. But then, you don't look at it from the opposite side of things where you think they're going to want to sort of put up some sort of fight, some sort of performance and try and grind a result. But yeah, I mean, have you got any other memories of past matches between us other than this season?
other than never winning at Turf Moor, that's always a well-known statistic. But home form, I thought we've always typically in the league we've always been quite strong. You know, whether it's Championship or Premier League. In the last thing, we beat you 4-2, I think it was, in the Premier League a couple of years ago. That was our first home game of the season, or first win of the season. We looked quite good. I think home form, typically we're quite strong at home. We set ourselves up quite well, but we've got 9 league goals at home all season. It's Man United have scored more goals against Southampton in one game than we've scored all season against 17 teams. That tells you a sorry picture. So there's no standout games for me. I just think some of these we've tended to play quite well at home against you over the season. I remember even the Championship. I think it was the year you got promoted, back when you got relegated first time around. Then we played you. It was a Tuesday night game. I think it was it 2-2? I can't remember. We beat you. Or you were flying high, and we put the brakes on you at the time because you were dominating that league that season. I remember you were coming very, very cocky, arrogant, coming to Craven Cottage. It was a Tuesday night game. I think we drew. Was it 2-2 or did we beat you? I can't remember. But we sort of knocked you back a little bit. But overall, there's no famous games between Fulham and Burnley. Let's be honest. I think really over the years, it's just the home team tends to win the games. You always don't lose at home, and we rarely lose at home.
Yeah, I think the only one that stands out for me that's sort of just popped into my head, and I can't believe I didn't think of it instantly, was the season we was in the Championship. We drew you in the Carling Cup, and we went on to sort of go on a run for capital punishment. We beat you at the Turf 1-0. I think that was on a Tuesday night. Jay Rodriguez rounding the goalkeeper in the dying minutes. He was only a young lad at the time. This was like back in 2008, 2009 season. So yeah, that were the season we got promoted via the playoffs under Owen Coyle that season. So
that's right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we went. I think we beat you. Yeah, we beat you 1-0. Then we knocked Chelsea out on penalties. Then we drew Arsenal and beat them 2-0 through Kevin McDonald, who get well soon to Kevin, and everything is going through. Yeah. Can I just say, to a former Claret, and obviously he's still with you guys, isn't he, on the backroom staff? Is he now?
Yes, he's had some surgery recently as well, so he's still an important figurehead in the team. He brings a lot of morale, confidence. A bit like Anderson. It's important to have someone of his quality in the dressing room. Clearly, he wasn't a Premier League player, but what he brings in the dressing room is important. He brings that morale, confidence. Kicks the players up the back. Had a bit of a joker at times as well in the dressing room. You need that sometimes. You need to sort of mix it up a little bit. You need those type of characters there. But he's been a good servant for Fulham over the years. So he'll be a legend forevermore, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a legend at Turf Moor for a different reason. I think it was the season we was in the Premier League. We were getting beat. I think we lost 6-1 to Man City at Turf Moor that season. It was absolutely teaming it down. People was looking at the ref saying, "Call it off." I wish he did. But I think it was already 4 or 5-0 down at half time, and Owen Coyle took Kevin McDonald off. And instead of staying in the stands and everything else watching the game, he got all his stuff and went literally down the road to the 110 club and sat with his dad and had a couple of pints, watch it second half. So we all think, that's just typical. It was almost like a bit of Burnley went with him that day. So yeah, he's got a bit of a legendary status for, like I say, his 2 goals against Arsenal, and then thinking, oh, it's Man City. I'm not, I'm subbed off. Game's over. I'm going for a pint. So.
I remember the season we got the last Premier League season. We beat you early in the season 4-2 at home. I remember, but the away game at Burnley again, it was a bottom of the table clash at Turf Moor. One of those games we mustn't lose against our rivals. And I think we took an early lead. Andres Schürrle scored a great goal. I remember.
Oh yeah, he did.
I remember that. But then you had 0 shots on target, but 1-2-1. I'm sure there was a statistic where your 2 goals were own goals from Fulham players that game. So you were 1-2-1 with 0 shots on target.
Not Seri scored a good goal against us as well.
Yeah.
I think it was up there for contender of the season as well.
The Schürrle goal was very good.
Yeah.
But again, we conceded 2 goals, and you didn't have 1 shot on target, yet you still won the game.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. It happens sometimes, and you take them. You take them with every.
Yeah. And again, it was a must not lose game. That's the problem with us this season. I don't know what you think, but I'd rather be beating the teams around us than beating Liverpool, Everton, Leicester. Great for morale, great for confidence. You've been those top 6 teams, but we need to be beating Brighton, yourselves, Crystal Palace, teams around us. These are the teams we need to be beating. We haven't done that. We've only beaten Sheffield United, the teams below us, and West Brom, and then you've beaten 3 teams in the top 6. Where are the wins against Brighton, Burnley? These are the games you need to be winning. Southampton. Too many draws there.
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of had a similar run like yourselves. We've not been the best this season. From the off, we didn't make any signings pretty much. We spent 750k on a third choice goalkeeper and a 34-year-old midfielder from Brighton who turns up to training with his legs still at home because he's been awful when he's played. So sorry, Dale Stevens, if you are watching. But yeah, I honestly thought this was the season that we was going to go. You sort of think, you'll get found out after a couple of seasons. But then, like you say, people then turn up against us when we've had these bad runs. And then we just get a result out of nowhere. And then we go on for about 3 or 4. We might have spent a bit more because we got a young lad in Mancini in the youth team. I think we spent more on our youth team than we've spent on our first team. I think Forest Green Rovers have spent more than us this season, so that says something. But yeah, it's in regards to our season, like you say, we've sort of had that similar where you get the early goal and you think, right, we need to hold on to this, and you've sort of, lost it. You'll either equalise and it'll be a point. Yes, a point's all well and good, but it feels more like a loss when you concede so late in the game. It's been a tough season for us both. Like I say, and I'm sorry to see Fulham. I can't see you staying up. I'm sorry, but it's sad to see that. I mean, we saw it with West Ham. The other day against us, West Ham had a lot of players that were apparently injured, and then about 3 or 4 of them were announced in the first team, and they went very attacking, and they deserved to win, in my opinion. So, for you, what would be your predicted lineup for the game tomorrow? And is there any sort of surprises in store for us? Do you think Scott Parker will change it up?
We've been crying out for a change at times. We've all been dwelling around what lineup is going to put out there. I think you've got to put your 2 forwards up there. Put Madja, put Mitrovic, for better for worse. You've tried not playing them both together, and you haven't got the result. So you've got give it your one last shot, Scott. I'd rather we go out there trying to win the game and put your hands up if we lost to a better team, rather than a draw is not good enough. You've got to go out all guns blazing. So I actually think we're going to take the game to you. I think Mitrovic, will start. He can, utilising where necessary, bullying defenders. He's not always technically the best, but he's got a knack of, causing a bit of harm to defenders, bully them, cause them to make mistakes, win some free kicks in danger areas, and maybe, we can, I won't say cause a surprise. I think we can beat you tomorrow, but it may be a bit too little too late. I think we will win tomorrow. I think we've got nothing to lose. Scott Parker will put a very attack-minded team, but Scott, we'll see what Sean Dyche can do. He'll look to close shop, make it difficult for us, maybe try to get an early goal. If Burnley get the first goal, then I think that's going to be, Fulham don't come back from a goal down and win games very often. So that's what Sean Dyche will be looking to do. So I think potentially it could be an interesting open game. I think we'll have to come at you at all costs. We'll put an offensive lineup, put your best players on there and give it your best shot. You've got nothing to lose here. Defending, like mad isn't going to get you 3 points. And I think we've got to go out there with only one objective: hurt you from the start, not physically, but hurt you mentally from the start. And I think we can win quite comfortably tomorrow. No, I'm being bullish here. I'm being bullish. But it might be
no. Honestly, I think you've got to be confident in these times. If you don't, and you're sort of already resounded to it. I've spoken to my uncle. My uncle's a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and obviously all the drama around yesterday, that Derby game, we just. End to end. 1 minute there, Derby's winning. 1 minute Sheffield Wednesday's winning. It was so I felt for him. because I've always sort of had a soft spot for Wednesday, as much as they've sort of done us a bit dirty in the past. But yeah, it's hard. Obviously, us now, it's coming up nearly 6 years since feeling any sort of relegation wars. How do you feel about that? Because it's one of those sometimes when you're in when you start of sort of in the Premier League for a long period of time, and then you get relegated. It's gut wrenching. It ruins you. It can, you go into work next day and want to smash your computer up or something like that. Something needs to get out, some sort of stress. But when it's coming to a point now where you feel yourself that you're doing something similar to like West Brom, and you're sort of bouncing and flitting between the two, does relegation still hurt as much, or is it more of a case now that, right, you've gone down last time, now you need to start spending, now you need to start rebuilding? I mean, that sort of, I'm hoping that's what you meant, Steve, because he's put, what are your hopes for next season? What are your hopes?
Clearly we all want to be playing at this level. You ask a lot of fans who maybe knee-jerk reactions will say, they'd rather be watching Fulham win games, and if that means being in the Championship, then so be it, which I totally disagree. You've got to have ambition as a fan. You've got to play at the top level. I was excited when we got promoted last season, and into the Premier League, but I was always nervous. I said before the season started, we need more strikers. There was no investment in strikers. We clearly didn't have enough goals in this team. And, the Premier League is not a forgiving league, to be honest. If you're not good enough, you're not going to win games, then I'd rather be winning games ugly, like Brighton did a few years ago under Chris Hughton. All these Brighton fans were complaining about Chris Hughton, but he got you promoted and he got them in the Premier League, kept them in the Premier League for 2 seasons. Do I want to play a Sam Allardyce football and stay in the Premier League, or do I want to play an exciting Bielsa type football and be in the Championship? For me, it's Premier League football is what counts. My hopes for next season is I want to build a foundational team there that's good enough to get promoted and stay and compete in the Premier League, rather than having massive overhaul and a significant investment in the club. That's what we seem to be doing. We get promoted, we either spend £100 million or you buy about a dozen loan players to keep you up in the division. There's no long-term vision, long-term strategy. That's the key for me. Do what Wolves did 3-4 seasons ago: build for the Championship and for Premier League survival. And that's if it may mean we may have to wait a couple seasons before we get a chance to get promoted. Next season, I don't think we'll do what Watford and Norwich have done and dominate that league. I think we might struggle, especially when we release a lot of existing permanent players and all the loan players go back to their parent clubs. That's what I'm worried about. Suddenly you've got to build another new squad, and that takes time to gel and come together, unless you miraculously find a winning formula. So we all want to get promoted again, but I worry for next season. I worry, to be honest.
Do you think next season is going to be a learning curve as well for Scott Parker? It's a case of, we've all seen now how difficult it is to get out of the Championship. It's sort of, it is going to be massive for him, because you're coming up against, you could say in the Championship, it's a lot more physical. It's, it's in the Premier League, there's a bit more space. It's a bit more open. When the Championship, you've got players in your face and don't give you breathing space throughout. So in a way, it could work in Scott Parker's favour with the way he plays football. But then it's like you say, it's keeping hold of those players that have done, have done all right for you over the years, but keeping them at a decent quality. I mean, I look at players for yourselves like Tom Kearney, who's a solid midfielder. I mean, he's another one that's probably had all his injury worries. So on the flip side of that question, who should we look out for tomorrow? Who's your danger man for this game tomorrow?
Interesting question. But weird. I think Mitrovic will be up for it tomorrow. I keep saying if we when chips are down, play your most experienced players, whether they're confident or not. You've got a decent international there, constantly warming the bench for most of the season. I think he will be as brainwashed as they go and hurt Tarkowski in central defence, give you guys a bit of a run for their money. I think he's going to be an important player for us tomorrow. Hopefully he will start. But at the end of the day, we haven't got really game changers in the team. That's the thing. You've got steady players. Loftus-Cheek, on the day on paper, he'd be an asset to any Premier League team. But look, he's clearly failed miserably at our club this season. You've got our wide back Lookman as well. I think Lookman started to get into a bit. He could be another danger person for you. But second half of this season, he's been found out as well. First half, he was outstanding, dangerous, tricky, fast, pacey, but he was lacking that final ball in the box. Second half of the season, he's been found out. Typically, he's had two defenders around him, getting little space and little productivity. But on his day, he's a handful. But he's another lone player. Will he play in the Championship? Probably not. He'll be going to another club. So for me, they're probably the two danger men. Again, Lookman, who can be a threat wide, but you need someone like Mitrovic there to bury that ball. But we don't get enough balls in the 6-yard box. That's the problem. Sometimes we try to do like Arsene Wenger did for Arsenal many years ago, trying to pass the ball into the net. You've got to be a little bit more direct. Do what Sean Dyche has done. Do some of these other managers have done, and got nothing to lose. You've got 90 minutes to keep your season alive, and you've got to play your strongest team, whether they're in form or not. Put aside your beliefs, Scott Parker. Put aside your, I don't know whether you have issues with Mitrovic, behind the scenes. There's obviously clearly something not right there, but this is the club's future at stake here, and give the guy a chance to prove it to you, and give ourselves a chance to go to Southampton away next week and maybe turn them over as well. But it's, for me, this is obviously it is a must-win game. Stupid statement, but I think we can beat you, and I think as long as we play our strongest team and go out there from the off, I think we'll win tomorrow. 3-1's my prediction, to be honest. I'm quite bullish tomorrow.
No, why not? It's like you say, Mitrovic could go out there with a point to prove, saying, "Look, this is what I'm still capable of. Why haven't you given me a shot? If you'd have done this earlier, we might not have been in this situation." Without exactly sort of saying that, but by doing what he does on the pitch, which can be bullish, but he's also got that bit about him to get the ball in the back of the net. For me, our danger man's got to be Chris Wood. I think because he's the man in form. Yeah. Him and Vidra at the moment have been working absolutely brilliantly. We've started to find that something that we never realised Burnley had was we can actually press, and we've done that, and we've sort of got early goals in games and things, but it's come to bite us in the backside again because what we've usually had is a solid back four that is now starting to show a few cracks because of that press. So it's been a catch-22 situation in that sort of area. Like you say, your score prediction, obviously, I think you said you went for going for 3-1, a bullish result. But yeah, I mean, other than the 3-1 that you've predicted, how do you see the game going in general, not just from the scoreline?
I think obviously we'll take the game at you. I think that's the key thing. I think Sean Dyche will probably do what he does best. He looks to absorb that pressure and maybe counter-attack, try to get maybe some set pieces, get a couple corners, because Chris Wood is, like you said, he is on form at the moment. He is a bit of a poacher in that 6-yard box, and he scored a hat-trick against Wolves the other week, didn't he? In that Wolves were distant that day, but give all credit to you guys. You won very, very comfortably there. So I think it's Sean Dyche will come up with this system. He knows Fulham are going to get at them. He'll try to maybe frustrate us. Maybe a few niggling fouls here and there, get us frustrated. Try to keep the score down to 0-0 by half an hour, and then you'll probably look to press and make the other opportunity score, maybe a set piece, corner. That's Sean Dyche's tactics. He'll look to maybe frustrate us, but if we can get an early goal, set the tone from the off, then I think we can go in and win the game comfortably. But I worry that the longer the game goes on without us scoring a goal, the more your team will frustrate us, and then that's when you're more likely to get a sucker punch from a set piece, maybe from a niggling foul or just a loose ball in the penalty area. You lose concentration for a fraction of a moment, you get penalised in this division. It's ruthless. So that's what I think. The game is Sean Dyche will just sit back, try to absorb pressure and frustrate us in the hope that we don't score, and then you'll grab a sucker punch at some point.
No, I mean, I'll take that every day of the week just to cement safety, just to cement it. But obviously, for all you watching, if you want to get your score predictions in, fire them in the comments. We'll get them up on the screen. We'll even have a talk about them, especially if they're crazy ones. But yeah, I just want to touch on one thing, because I've just seen recently that it's today in 1989 was the world famous and one of the most important matches in Burnley's history, the world famous Orient game, which all of us have heard from the Bob Lord area of our stands. We're always sort of, it's drummed in. You weren't there at Orient, blah blah blah. But obviously, it secured our survival in the league in Division 4. Without that win, we would have pretty much been liquidated. Would have been extinct. I think the club would have folded. They said at that time. So yeah, it's a massive moment in history. Obviously, 2 goals by Neil Grucock and Ian Britton sent us on our way to that 2-1 result. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that 34 long years ago. I mean, it was.
I remember that. I remember that game. I do remember that. Well, no, about 2 or 3 years after that, we were struggling as well. 91, 92 season, we were 91st in the league, and we lost away to Torquay United, who were 92nd in the league. So it's, we've all been down there at the bottom of that 4th tier. And look, both clubs have done well to get to where they are now. We've had our previous owner kept us 13 years in the Premier League. These owners, I mean, the owner, I'm not gonna diss him. I think he spent a hell of a lot of money for our club, in the stadium, on the players. His passion and his efforts is second to none. Unfortunately, he's got his son who's director of football and is responsible for all the purchases, transactions, and players that he signs. So
there's a lot of 3-0s coming in here.
Okay. 3-0.
A lot of 3-0s.
Blimey, I wish, Steve. It's he's only scored 1 goal all season. What's to say he's going to score 3 tomorrow? It's I don't care how we get them, as long as we win the game. It's I don't care if we win ugly. It's 3 points is what counts. But we've been saying it, like I've said earlier in the show, for the half a season now. There's so many games we have to win. Those games have slowly but surely run out, and we haven't won enough. The thing for me is when we were dominating possession and looking difficult, that sort of January to March time, we were playing good football, won at Everton, Liverpool, drew with Tottenham, narrowly lost to Chelsea and Tottenham. We weren't winning enough games when we were on top. So that when you're dominating and looking good and winning plaudits for attractive football, those draws were not converted to wins, and that's what's relegated us. Not the beginning of the season. It's when you're on top and you aren't making that count. Whereas you guys, you've started to find a way of winning in January, February, March, and that's where you are. And that's why now you're pretty much safe. If only we could have found that winning form, and we haven't found that, to be honest. And that's a problem. But I'll take any victory tomorrow. I don't care how they come. 3 points, give us something to cheer about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're on home soil. If I look back, obviously we got that 3-0 cup win, but that's out the window. That was months back. This is a completely different game. So yeah, you can have your 3-0 this time if you want. But no, this game aside, obviously there's been all the running with the Super League things, and I just want to gather your thoughts on it all. Obviously, it's all pretty much been squished, but it's coming up to the end of the season now, and these clubs, I don't know, they're sneaky, so there might be something in the pipeline. Nobody knows. I mean, what's your thoughts on it? What's your thoughts on what punishment should be given out? Because I look at the teams like I go back to Sheffield Wednesday. They had a point deduction at the beginning of this season. They wouldn't have been relegated on that point deduction. But yet, because these are the teams for me that are generating a lot of this, they're not seem to be getting the repercussions which needs to happen. So, what are your thoughts on what punishment would you give?
At the end of the day, there's always. I remember in Italy. I remember years ago in Italy in the Italian league. Some of the Juventus they got docked. They went down 2 divisions because of some irregularities. All transfer irregularities and bribes and what have you. So this is they frauded the fans. These big 6 teams. It's disgusting. And likes of Burnley and Fulham would never even enter their heads to join this breakaway Super League. To be honest, it just shows it's all about money. And if those guys want to go and play that type of football, kick them out of the Premier League. Kick them out. They've got. I'm just interested to see how the fans. Will they continue to respect their owners, or now they actually maybe want to support another team? It's disgusting the way they've just dissed the fans. The fans have no say in the matter. Now I've seen all the apologies from Man United owners, Chelsea owner, Arsenal owners apologising for their behaviours, but you start to lose respect for your owners when you get to that sort of underhand tactics. I think they should be punished. There's always this hope that if they all get relegated, maybe there'll be no relegation from the Premier League this season. That would be nice, but it's not going to happen. Let's be honest. It's they'll probably get a fine behind the scenes, and then it'll be forgotten. Things will be back to normal next season.
It's
I agree
awkward
with
as
you.
well, though, with fans, isn't it? It's awkward with fans because what is a fan to those big clubs? It's nothing.
Nothing. You know,
It's pocket money. It's
all about
it's
television, right?
worthless.
They don't care.
Yeah, of course it is.
You know, we've been supporting the club for donkey's years. You know, 40 years I've supported in our club through thick and thin. But for me, hi there, mate. How are you doing?
How you go? How's it going, mate? You all right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's Chris with a comment. So
yes. So hi, Chris.
Hope you're well, Chris.
It's look. You know, Leicester's a good example. You know, now an established Premier League team pushing. You could argue above their weight. Chris won't mind me saying that, but you know their owners haven't gone into this stupid league theory and all that. And if these big club, Liverpool, Man United, they want to go, then let them go. Let them go. You know, that's what's sad about it. Now it's all been canned, but if it's been touted as an opportunity for a Super League, don't be surprised there'll be a different spin of this in due course. It's all about financial viability now. That's a problem. Now, at what cost? At the fans' cost. You know, we support our clubs. We spend a lot of money on clothes, kits, programs, match days, subscriptions, you name it. What thanks do we get? Nothing. And that's
nothing.
the thing.
Somebody that I think does deserve a bit of thanks is the missus. She's put a little comment in saying, "Hey." So
hey,
hi, here's your shout out, Kate. Hope you're happy now. She's currently sat downstairs watching the daughter, so with my mum and my stepdad. So we've had tea at my mum's. So
that's nice. So yeah, it's at the end of the day, will they get? They won't get punished. They'll get a fine and a slap on the hand, and that'll be it. But like the Sheffield Wednesday, look, without that points deduction, there would have been this division, and Derby County would have got relegated potentially. So it's what can you do? That's a frustration. But when money talks, Sheffield Wednesday haven't got the money. That's why they've been punished. They've got no way of challenging that deduction. It always feels the smaller clubs always get punished, and the bigger clubs get away with murder.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. I agree with Chris as well. Keep the missus happy. Yes. That's why I'm upstairs, mate. There's no arguing. Everything's fine while I'm out the way. But for me, it's hard to watch for teams like Wigan that have dropped down the divisions. Yeah. Darlington that's no longer in existence. Bury that have sort of suffered the same fate. Yeah. And I feel for teams like that because, there was no, but it's not the fans' fault. At the end of the day, the bloke that went in at Bury passed a test that the league had put him through. Half of these at the big clubs like the Glazers and Kroenke and all this lot, they've not gone through any tests at the time because there were no tests when they've come in.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
And it's all about, what about the fans? Well, it's their fans that are protesting what you're doing. It's their fans storming the pitch at Old Trafford. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think, yes, okay, get the owners out. I agree. If you've got bad owners and things like that, you want them out. It's typical what fans want. But they should suffer the same fate. They should get either relegated a division or two and have to fight, which would be a big struggle for Arsenal.
Yeah, well, look at Arsenal now. Again, they wanted to go in this breakaway Super League. They're not even going to qualify for Europe this season at this rate. So, but my view is, to Chris's point it's true. Football goes through phases. Fulham were never deemed to be a big club, even though we stayed 13 years in the Premier League. But some of these traditional big clubs, like Newcastle is a good example. I keep going on about. They've obviously got big fan base, big stadium, but what have they won? They've won nothing in 50 years?
Yeah.
If they were to get relegated, why would it be a disgrace that they get relegated? It's because football is all dictated by success. If you haven't got success, you have no divine right to be in the Premier League. We're getting relegated because we haven't won enough games. Doesn't give me a right to say Fulham, well, we played good football under Scott Parker, we should stay in the Premier League. No, wins keeps you up, not good football. Newcastle haven't won trophies. Why should they be in the Premier League? If you're going to get relegated, you're relegated because you're not good enough, whether you're a big club or not. So I agree with Chris. Preston, Blackpool, Burnley. You've all had your big days. You've won silverware. You've won FA Cups over the years. But it all goes,
that history just sort of gets wiped out, doesn't it? It's pretty much a clean slate, and you're starting as a fresh club. Yeah. And I agree. They say they're big clubs, but they're not. It's just a tag. It's a name that they've been given because they've been up there for so long, and it's not fair. Obviously, I'm glad that the Super League's been squished and stuff, but there'll be other times that they try and come up with some other ideas, some other plans. But no, thanks ever so much for coming on. It's been great. Obviously, giving us an insight to, an insight to a relegated side.
Look, I'm not. Of course, I'm disappointed, but at the end of the day, it's only a game of football. The last 12 months, in particular, with COVID and all these issues of going out of football, sometimes there's more important things to life than football. To be totally honest with you, not being able to watch the games on live in the stadium, that's also been an issue. I can't get excited watching a game on the televition. It's not the same.
I think a lot of people will have fallen out of love with football recently as well during these times.
I've lost interest. Yeah,
my uncle's done the same now. But Sheffield Wednesday, he's used to it. This is the third time now that he's seen them, drop down to the third tier. He used to write the fanzines for them, and he lives down in Cornwall now, down in Penzance, and they've got a little football team round the corner from where he lives. So, he's happy to do that. I'm happy to go back to somewhere like grassroots. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
It's where all teams pretty much rose from. When it started back in the day with like Darwin FC and all these teams that sort of created their own FA, and then it branched out, etc. But
interestingly, from my perspective, I think it applies to all clubs. To be honest, but no club has had fans in the stadiums. But a club like Fulham, a small ground, we rely on our fans to.
Oh yeah, they were 12th man week in, week out.
I think that's why our home form has been awful this season. 9 goals all season at home. We've had a dismal home record, and I think a lot of it's most of it's to do with COVID. Not because we're not good enough. It's because I think the COVID situation, no fans on the pitch. That game where we had Liverpool at home back in December, we had a small collection of fans at the ground. They were like the 12th man in that game. And we should have won that game. We drew undeservedly. We drew 1-1. Liverpool were lucky to get an equaliser that game. But if we had fans throughout the season, I think we probably would have had more chance of staying up and have a better home record.
Charlie asked, if Fulham get relegated, will Areola leave?
Unfortunately, yes. He will go. He's a Premier League player. He'll go back to Paris Saint-Germain and probably go back on loan to another club. But
is he only on loan at you guys? I thought he'd signed permanently.
No, we've got an option to sign him permanently. We've got first refusal, but this is the thing. Likes of Anderson, Areola, we've got first refusal to sign these guys if we stayed up. If we didn't stay up, it's isn't she looking after the kid, mate?
I'm starting to think she's not. I'm starting to think she's gone. Right, go and chill over there with your grandma. I'm watching your daddy on here.
You don't want to listen about football, don't you? You've got things to be doing with your time.
But no, thanks very much for coming on. Thanks everybody for your comments. Last but not least, obviously, again, give yourself a plug. Where can everybody find all your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Teddy Nello, and obviously part of the At Cottage Talk podcast. So do follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and also on YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. We've recently set up a YouTube channel, so the more fans we can get on there, the better. So do watch us. After every game, we do a post-match, reflection on the game. We do a detailed post-match show after the game as well, 24 hours after, and we do preview shows. So there's plenty to keep you occupied. So if you want a bit of fun, passion, do follow us at Cottage Talk and listen to some of our live broadcasts. No,
not a problem. And obviously, you get a good insight to what's going on in the Championship.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I had to get it in.
It's only football at the end of the day. Let's say it's only football at the end of the day.
It is, and I think that's the best thing about football. You can have that banter, you can have that sort of camaraderie with people, and it's great. No, again, thanks for coming on. Please go and check out Cottage Talk. Go and give Emilio's channel, Teddy Nello, follow as well. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow at Cricket Field End on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and cricketfieldend.tv on YouTube. Thanks very much, and I guess we'll see you after Monday's result.
Maybe.
Good luck for the season after Monday.
After Monday.
But no, thanks again for coming on, pal.
It's been
cheers, mate.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Thank you.